In the world of video games, there is a very popular action and romance RPG called Kriana Fantasy. Set in the prestigious Royal Academy of Kriana, it is a game with a high degree of freedom and multiple endings, where the player's path changes according to his actions. You can enjoy exciting battles against magical beasts while attending the academy, or, if you prefer, get entangled in a romance with the various heroines of the story. One of them, a young woman named Celia, could invite the player to lunch, giving the option of accepting, rejecting, confessing feelings, or even proposing an affair. But the game also had rather less pleasant characters, such as Alba, who contemptuously claimed that commoners should not breathe the same air as him. No matter the route chosen by the player, there was always a character that inevitably appeared on his way. That was Alba, who did not hesitate to throw insults, saying that the player disgusted him, and that he was nothing but useless garbage. Member of the elite, son of a duke, Alba Haresha. Strong, arrogant, spoiled, womanizing, and with a terrible character. Alba was the supreme villain, destined from the beginning to be the enemy of the protagonist. Far from academia and conflicts, in a rustic cabin in the mountains, a young man with unruly hair wakes up to what he calls another wonderful morning. That young man is precisely Alba Haresha, the troublesome son of a duke. While he is working the land with a hoe, he stops for a moment to wipe the sweat from his forehead. He reflects that it's been 3 years since he was reincarnated as Alba. The memory of that day was still clear. He remembered waking up suddenly in Duke Irish's opulent mansion, completely lost. I didn't recognize the place, not even the face I saw in the mirror. He wondered who that person was until a memory from his past life came up, a certain game, Kriana Fantasy. He recalled that it was a youth fantasy game at the Royal Academy of Kriana, where a villain was destined to annoy the player. That villain, Alba, was known for his despicable attitudes, such as declaring that the saint was his, and that he would treat her very well, or stealing the heroine from the protagonist, acting as a cruel rival. Over time, in the plot of the game, Alba became corrupted by evil, and became the destroyer of the academy, promising to crush both the protagonist and the institution. Regardless of the player's path, Alba's fate was always bleak, trying to dominate the city with the power of her family, stealing treasures, proclaiming herself a hero, or simply swearing to destroy everything. In his previous life, he remembered playing games and commenting on how insistent the villain Alba was. Although his memory of the game was fuzzy, he remembered that character well. Perception fell on him like lightning. It was not a dream. She was reincarnated as Alba. His confused mind came to a terrible conclusion: he was fucked. Because Alba's destiny was only one, to die. No matter the route, the death flag was inevitable. Either he would be killed in a fight by the protagonist, with the help of one of the heroines, or shot down by the protagonist himself. To prevent his evil deeds. Back at the mansion, at the moment of reincarnation, young Alba panicked. The idea of reincarnating without understanding the reason, only to wait for his own death, was unbearable. He closed his fist, invaded by a new determination. If that was his destiny, then there was only one way out: to flee. That same night, he escaped from the mansion under the cover of darkness, carrying a heavy suitcase filled with all the valuables in his room. And a sword. The servants panicked, shouting that young Master Alba had disappeared again. With the stolen goods, he quietly said goodbye to his family, planning to sell everything to live alone in the countryside. Their only goal, to survive. It's been 3 years since then. She died and cut her hair, bought a little house in the mountains, and started living off manual labor. Inconvenient compared to his previous life, but it was a peaceful retreat. Above all, he was alive. Her peace is interrupted by a female voice calling her name. It's Celia Margaret, who's apologizing for waking up late. He greets her, thinking to himself that the goddess of the fate of this world would not let him get away so easily. Celia smiles sweetly, wishes him a nice day, and hands him a letter. He recognizes her as one of the possible heroines of the game. He jokes that if the letter is about her debt, she can eat it. Cia replies that she is not a goat, making him laugh. He caresses her head, apologizing. She pouts, but soon smiles contentedly. He knows deep down that he shouldn't get involved with that girl. She is one of the people who could take him straight to his death flag. Celia, he explains, is the saint who serves the goddess of that world's religion. Thanks to this, he is a rare and famous figure, with exceptional gifts of healing, and even the ability to foresee disasters. The reason why a saint was involved with him started half a year ago. At that time, during some shopping, he heard the inhabitants happily commenting on the rumors about the death of the detestable son of the Haresha family. Hoping that the city would have peace, he worried that his family might be looking for him, but when he heard the rumors, he understood that they probably hated him enough not to deny them. While venting his frustration at a scarecrow, a distant scream caught his attention. In the nearby forest, the guards of a carriage were asking the saint to escape, while they were brutally murdered by hooded men. Celia was left alone and terrified, surrounded by the bodies of her protectors. When one raised a dagger for the final blow, an explosion of energy threw him into the air. Alba entered the clearing, calmly saying that girls should not be made to cry. Celia looked at him, with the feeling of having seen him before. He, on the other hand, immediately recognized her as one of the heroes of the game, one of the main flags of his death. Panic seized him. He had isolated himself precisely to avoid people like her. He tried to apologize and leave, but the killers got up again. A shadow of the ancient dawn passed over his face. A cruel smile appeared when he commented that the goddess of fate would not let him escape. When they advanced, he unleashed all his power, in a blinding blue glow, defeating them all at once. Celia was shocked. He reflected on his training. Since he became isolated, he practiced magic daily to understand the power of that world, and try to escape his destiny. I knew it was a game world, but I felt no pleasure in killing the people who lived in it. He reaffirmed his determination to resist with everything. When the dust cleared, he asked Celia if she was okay, even though he knew the answer. He apologized for not saving his teammates. Trapped by the trauma, Celia broke down, crying that she couldn't take it anymore. Her pilgrimage as a saint made her a constant target, and the death of innocents to protect her was an unbearable burden. He confessed that he just wanted a normal life, free from fear. Seeing her genuine tears, Alba understood that she was not just a game character, but a real person who was suffering. Moved by compassion, he invited her to his house. He told her that, if fate made her cry, she could just run away. Like him, he offered her a place to escape with him. With tears in her eyes, she accepted. He knew that he should not approach a girl linked to his death flag, but he could not help the desire to see her smile instead of crying. Thus, Celia Margaret and Alba began to live together. A year and a half later, his life was peaceful. Celia, now with a radiant smile, shows Alba a letter received from her father, the Pope. Suddenly, she hugs him, asking if he will stay with her. He reassures her, saying that, for having saved her, he is responsible for her to the end. Happy, she reveals the contents of the letter, a brochure from the Royal Academy of Kriana, the main stage of Kriana fantasy, which for Alba was like her own guillotine, full of death flags. Celia's father suggested that she go to the academy to have the normal life that she wanted so much. With a twinkle in her eye, she tells Alba that, if he goes with her, he will have the best school life of all. Alba feels a chill. The goddess of fate, apparently, does not intend to let him escape. The final scene shows Celia dragging a panicked Alba out of the cabin, while he screams in despair that he doesn't want to go. In the world of the action-romance RPG Kriana Fantasy, the main stage is the Kriana Academy. Administered directly by the Kingdom of Kriana, the Academy invites and educates promising nobles, but also accepts talented and non-human commoners. Within the complex plot of the game, one character stands out as the supreme villain, a thorn stuck in the protagonist. No matter which way the story takes, the rebellious son of a duke, Alba Haresha. And on all routes, his fate is the same, he always dies. I was reincarnated as that same villain. To escape the doomed fate of this body, my strategy was simple: avoid all death flags, those triggers that lead to my death. For that, I moved away from the protagonist and the main scenario of the game, the academy, and lived a quiet and isolated life in the mountains. Despite all my efforts, I ended up coming here anyway. As the carriage approached the gates of the city, my traveling companion, Celia, looked wonderingly out of the window, exclaiming how big the Kreen Academy was. I could only nod with a weary sigh. She noticed my pale face and asked me if I was okay. I attributed my condition to a simple dizziness from the trip. Worried, Celia offered to let him lay his head on her lap, using it as a pillow. I politely declined, thanking her for her offer, not knowing how to handle such kindness. What Celia Margaret didn't know was about my fate, about the dead flags that awaited me at this academy, or how they were intrinsically linked to the heroines of the game. After all, Celia is one of them. Seeing his worried face, he asked me not to try too hard. So, why exactly was he going to the academy with her? It all started when Celia received a letter from her father. My mind went back to that day, when she showed me the overseal. I froze when I found out what it was for me. Celia's father is the founder of the most popular religion in this world, the Church of the Goddess. A man whose power and authority rival those of the King of Kriana himself. I was sheltering her daughter, Celia, because of certain circumstances that she was going through. My heart froze, waiting for the letter to contain a furious threat, a promise of divine punishment, for having approached his daughter. I swallowed hard, fear taking over me as I broke the seal. However, when reading the content, the letter was not a threat, but a message full of apologies and gratitude. In it, Celia's father revealed the truth about his daughter. Celia was not only his daughter, she is the saint, blessed with the miraculous powers of the goddess since her birth. Her fate was sealed from the moment she came into the world, dedicated to following the teachings of the goddess. Since he has the use of reason, he travels visiting the faithful, seeking to bring salvation to the lost sheep with the power of the goddess, no matter how arduous or dangerous the path. Celia never complained, not once, doing her duty with a smile on her face. His father confessed in the letter his own stupidity. He, as a father and founder, saw it only as the duty of someone born as a saint. She never realized that her daughter's smile was just a mask to hide her true feelings, the tears she was crying in silence. Celia was also a lost sheep, desperately wanting someone to save her, longing for a normal life. That's when I found her, and seeing her in her most desperate moment, I asked her if she wanted to come back with me to my place. The founder expressed his deepest gratitude, saying that I, Alvedono, had not only saved his daughter's life, but also her soul. Still, as a father, he wanted to fulfill his beloved daughter's wish to have a normal life, and wanted to support her in it. He told me to laugh at that old sinner if I wanted to, but I replied that I would not laugh. The letter continued with a request. Celia, confused, asked what was wrong, commenting that her father was a wonderful man. I agreed, but the founder's request took me by surprise. He wanted me to attend the Kriana Academy together with Celia. He explained that the academy was a place where many talented people and devotees of the goddess gathered. A place whose education could not be matched by any other institution. I was sure that Celia would be able to live the life she wanted if she attended the Kriana Academy, and that she wanted me to go with her. He would feel calmer if someone as strong as me, who defeated only the murderers who made an attempt on his daughter's life, was by his side. And I was sure that Celia herself wanted to stay with me too. Standing outside my house in the mountain, Celia confirmed that everything was fine, calling me by name. I knew that his smile hid his true intentions very well. She said she didn't mind going to the academy alone, and I could see how that smile had fooled her father. I desperately tried to dissuade her, warning that the academy was a scary place, full of bad people and bullies. She was surprised. But I continued, saying that, being administered by the kingdom, her life would not be in danger as during her pilgrimages, but that there would be many nasty guys who would want nothing more than to seduce a pretty girl like her. I shouted, asking him if he still wanted to go, but my attempt was in vain. With a beaming smile, she said she was sure many people there would become her friends too. I had only studied the Bible before, so I was eager to learn new things. I argued that being in an unfamiliar place might exhaust her, but she replied that she was excited about going somewhere new. Seeing his happy face, I sat down. We decided to go together. Of course, my mind was telling me that I should stay away from the academy and that girl. But I had decided to fight my dead flags with everything I had. And, in the end, a smile matches Celia more than a sad expression. As I was reading the letter, thanking the goddess for the guidance, a gloomy thought struck me. Maybe it was the goddess who led me into this world in the first place, leading me straight to my death. That's when my eyes fell on the end of the letter. There was a postscript. One last wish from Celia's father for me, Alba Dono. In large letters, the message was clear. Don't you dare make my daughter cry. Yours sincerely, Celia's dad. It was that ultimatum that sealed my fate. And so, we arrived at the Kriana Academy. It was huge, much more imposing than I could ever feel through a screen. In the courtyard, there were statues of the goddess, the hero, and even the sacred beast that protects the maidens. Celia found it wonderful, but I had the uncomfortable feeling that each of them was related to different events of the game. But damn, I couldn't remember them. I reminded Celia that, as long as we were at the academy, I would be just Al. To avoid my dead flags, I needed to hide my identity as Alba Erisia. Celia's father, the Pope, provided me with the identity of Al, the Holy Knight Apprentice. Celia laughed, incredulous that a nasty guy who had run away from home would now be treated like a son by his family, and I laughed with her. The power of the founder was really frightening. Still, it was frustrating that my memory of the game was so hazy. As I was trying to force my memories, a crowd began to form around us. Someone pointed, and soon everyone realized that she was the saint, the real saint. In an instant, we were surrounded. Celia is a superstar in this world, and panic took over me. That's what I should have been worried about. People were crowding, asking to shake his hand, to be his friends. The faces in the crowd, previously smiling, became gloomy and oppressive, a mass of shadows pressing on her from all sides. Shouting her title. Celia's desire for a normal life was being crushed. Surges of invisible power emanated from the pressure of the crowd, pushing everyone back. With a quick movement, I took her in my arms. I declared out loud that she was not there as the saint, but as a student of the Kriana Academy. And that I, as a Holy Knight Apprentice, would risk my life to protect her, asking that they refrain from recklessly crowding around her. The crowd fell silent, stunned, as I walked away with Celia. They were muttering among themselves, wondering what had just happened, commenting that he must be the son of a great noble family. To take the saint away like that, in one fell swoop. Celia thanked me, blushing slightly. I replied that the founder would be angry if I let her cry. As we were heading towards the doors of the academy, a figure was watching us in the distance. A young woman with long hair, dressed in light armor, was staring at us. Her eyes widened in surprise and disbelief as she saw me. He whispered my name, a name I was desperately trying to hide, to the bee. In front of the doors of the majestic Royal Academy, Kriana, a young woman with blonde hair and bright eyes, barely manages to contain her excitement. He calls his partner, Alba, hurrying him to go pick up their uniforms. However, for the light-haired and rambunctious young man, the arrival at the academy is not a reason for celebration. For him, going through those doors meant facing his inevitable fate, the ruin of Alba. He thought he was ready, but when he steps on the grounds of the Kriana Academy, a deep anxiety consumes him. A fleeting memory of a long-haired man haunts him, and he wonders if Alba hears and will find her end in this place. His fist clenches tightly, a mixture of fear and determination. Sensing his distress, the girl Celia gently takes his hand. She comforts him, assuring him that everything will be fine and that she is with him. With a radiant smile, she reassures him by telling him not to be afraid. Alba feels pathetic. In her thoughts, it is he who should protect her. He thanks Celia, recognizing her as his holiness. With a soft laugh, she confesses that she is also a little nervous. Together they enter the imposing building, where Celia is amazed by a huge stained glass window. Alba observes that she never stops praying for everyone, no matter where she is. However, Celia's prayer this time is a little more personal. He silently asks to be in the same class as Alba, a desire that he perceives with a touch of irony. Luck is on your side. Upon arriving to remove the uniforms, an elderly official informs them that both Alkan and Celiacon were assigned to the unicorn class. Celia celebrates the news, happy to be with him. While they are thanking the man, Alba can't help but think that the old man seems like the kind of character who would be involved in some important event in the story. Outside, walking through the courtyards of the academy, Al expresses his relief that nothing has happened yet. Celia, encouraged, comments about the uniform, and Al takes the opportunity to correct her, telling her that at the academy, he is not Alba but Al. As soon as he finishes the sentence, a cutting voice echoes in the courtyard, calling Alba. An imposing warrior, with a long dark ponytail, stands in front of them. She claims that, although her hair color is different, she is sure that he is Alba. Al's mind is invaded by the image of burning red hair. He recognizes her instantly. This is Elena, one of the heroines, Alba's childhood friend, and his fiancée. Even worse, it is one of the key pieces linked to his death flag. Elena ignores Celia and demands to know why Alba is with the saint. Trying to protect Al, Celia intervenes, explaining that he is her assistant and a holy knight apprentice. Elena scoffs at the disguise attempt, noting that she simply removed the B from her name. Celia's indignation grows, and she insists that he is Al and not that Alba, who is having a strange encounter with someone from her house. Panic seizes Al as he tries to silence her. For Elena, the pieces fit together. Alba fled her home and spread the rumor that she had died. Al tries to act out, but Elena loses patience. She warns him that if he keeps playing dumb, she'll cut him off right there. With a serious and deadly look, she throws herself at him. The crowd around murmurs, identifying the aggressor as Lady Elena Persia, from the prestigious Persia family. Al orders Celia to move away, while Elena, sword in hand and face clouded by fury, asks her one last time if she is Alba. Faced with the ultimatum, Al remembers a promise he made in the past, to fight with all his might, no matter what fate awaited him. Firmly, he answers that it is Al. Elena smiles coldly. He tells her to then engrave on his body the crime and the punishment for cheating on the Persia family. She attacks him, and Al understands how dangerous the situation is. In the game, Elena was the best swordswoman. She advances to deliver a final blow, but in the blink of an eye, Al disappears. Elena's attack impacts the stone floor, shattering it. Surprised, she wonders where she went, when she hears his voice asking her to calm down. He had reappeared behind her, stopping the blade of his sword with just 2 fingers. The crowd is stunned. Elena can't believe what she's seeing. Al reveals the source of his power, magic. His mind returns to a time of intense training. He remembers learning about the elemental affinities of nature, fire, water and wind. He had to harmonize with the attribute that best suited him. A task that reminded him to investigate the weaknesses of enemies in the game. When concentrating, he felt a strange sensation, beyond the 5 senses, and discovered his attribute, lightning. For 3 long years, he perfected that perception, mastering the power of magic until he was able to transform his body into pure lightning. That was his ace up his sleeve, the power to resist his death flag. Back in the present, Al holds Helena's sword and asks her to listen to him. He tells her that he understands that she holds a grudge against Alba, but that now he is just Al, and for that he apologizes. The word rancor hits Helena, who, overwhelmed with emotion, screams and plunges the sword into the ground in frustration. At that instant, Al disappears again, taking Celia with him. The crowd is shocked by the sudden disappearance. Leaving behind, Elena looks at the empty space, muttering that they escaped. When someone approaches her to ask if she's okay, she turns her face, hiding a solitary tear, and replies that she's fine. That she just got something in her eye. Far away, in a neighboring city, Al lands gently, still carrying Celia in his arms. She admits that the surprise scared her, and he apologizes, laughing. Hal asks her if she's upset. With puffed-up cheeks, Celia denies it. But then he lists all the qualities of Helena, more mature, with an older bust, super pretty, insisting that she is not jealous. Al laughs at her lousy attempt at lying, which irritates her even more. With a tender look, he calls her a lousy liar, and asks if they should go to the house her father had prepared. Celia accepts, on one condition, that I carry her in my arms all the way. Al smiles and agrees. As he walks through the streets with Celia in his arms, he reflects that his life at the Kriyanana Academy seems like it will be full of problems from the very beginning. Alba and Celia's new life does not start in an isolated cabin in the mountains, but in front of an imposing mansion in the capital. Upon arrival, Celia can hardly contain her surprise, exclaiming that the house is much bigger than the home they shared before. Alba, carrying her bags, confirms that this must be the place. Exploring the property, Celia is amazed to discover a vegetable garden. Excited by the idea that they will be able to grow their own vegetables again, Alba observes the two-story house, complete with its own garden, in the middle of the royal capital, and concludes that the place must have cost a fortune, something she already expected from Celia's father. The interior is equally spacious, with a moderna kitchen, a bathroom and a living room on the ground floor, and separate bedrooms for both on the second floor. Sitting on the edge of the bed in his new room, Alba admits to himself that the house is in fact very good. Later, sitting at the table, Alba asks Celia if she received any money for expenses, besides the house. She denies this, explaining that her father told her that, if she wants a common life, she must earn her own livelihood. Alba realizes that her father is not only trying to pamper her, but really wants to help her become independent. Although she still considers him too lenient, since he promised to support her financially if things got difficult. With the issue of money in mind, Celia announces that they don't have a lot of funds, and that she must find a job immediately. To Alba's surprise, he declares with a beaming smile that he will work to keep them both. He reveals that his father has already got him a job at the church. The mention of Celia's work as a saint triggers a series of thoughts in Alba. He knows that the saint possesses divine blessings, such as the hearing of oracles to foresee and avoid disasters, and a healing power capable of healing any wound or illness. The faithful gather in search of these powers, and Celia receives a part of the donations they offer. However, Alba's mind is plunged into a dark cynicism. He believes that Celia accepted the job with the pure intention of helping everyone, but suspects a more greedy motive on the part of the church. She recalls that she was sent on hard pilgrimages as a child, not out of devotion, but because her presence attracted massive donations. For him, the saint is nothing more than a gold mine. Celia notices his gloomy expression and asks him what's wrong, but Alba hides it, saying it's nothing. Then he insists that he will also work, because letting a girl do everything, while he does nothing, would be a blow to his pride. Celia argues that, since they live together, there would be no problem, but Alba cuts her off, telling her that she should save that devotion for her future husband. His own words hit him hard. Celia, surprised and hurt, knocks him gently on the head again and again, demanding to know what he meant by that. With her eyes full of tears, she turns around, declaring that she doesn't care anymore, and to do whatever she wants. She angrily leaves, stating that she will have dinner alone, leaving Alba stunned in the living room. Later that night, lying in his bed, Alba reflects on what happened, convinced that he said nothing wrong. He rationalizes that he is only her partner for now, and that she already has a predestined partner. The real protagonist of the game Kriana Fantasy, Eurus. She describes him as a handsome young man, a master of the sword and magic, a true saint, and the complete opposite of a villain like him. In the game world, all the heroines fall in love with Eurus. That means, Alba concludes, that there is no reason for her to remain by Celia's side when their fateful encounter occurs. Her mind then wanders into the past, remembering how they met 3 months earlier. In a vivid memory, she is seen in her mountain hut, telling a hooded Celia that she could stay as long as she wanted, that she was not a saint there, but just a normal girl. He remembers her joy at discovering the simple things in life, the pleasure of working in the field, the taste of fresh vegetables, the difficulties and laughter of learning to cook, the novelty of a hot outdoor bath, and the beauty of a starry night sky. He remembers a moment when she, beaming, told him that it was the first time in her life that she felt so relaxed, calling his name with pure happiness. Back to the present, the harsh reality hits him. He admits to himself that he would be lying if he said he wouldn't miss her when she was gone. However, he resigns himself to the idea that, if Celia follows the path that was destined for her, he will be able to avoid his own death flags. That night, she hears a knock on her door. It's Celia, who apologizes for what happened earlier, but Alba is already asleep. Silently, he approaches and whispers a thank you, saying that it is thanks to him that he is there now. The next morning, Alba wakes up and finds a note and a paper bag on her table. Celia was apologizing again. She had left some food and left for her duties at the church. With a smile, Alba thanks him in silence. Food is a hamburger, a familiar taste that fills you with happiness, even in a game world. With Celia already working, he is filled with determination. He too must go out to earn money. Their destination is the Adventurers Guild, an organization that administers quests throughout the kingdom. Inside the imposing building, he observes the adventurers and the quest board, thinking that, although in the game it was not necessary, in real life it is the fastest way to earn money. He notices an extermination mission of a gigantic magical beast with a reward of 5 million curia, and, although he trusts in its strength, he knows that he never fought against one. His contemplation is interrupted by other adventurers, who scoff at the idea of a novice fixing on such a high-level mission. At the reception, he learns about the ranks of adventurer. Rookies like him start at the rank of 1 star, limited to simple missions. He accepts his first task, a simple herb gathering in the West Forest. As a carriage would cost money, he decides to run. And he runs like lightning, crossing the city streets at superhuman speed, faster than a car. His quick step generates a gust of wind that surprises 2 young students. One of them, a girl with glasses and long pigtails named Alice, is frightened by the sudden wind. When the dust settles, she recognizes a brown-haired young man standing near them, Eurus. He greets her with a smile, and they both continue on their way. On the other side of the street, Alba suddenly stops, her face invaded by astonishment. She has just crossed paths with the protagonist of the story, the man destined to stay with Celia. The encounter was brief, but the air is filled with tension as the two, the reincarnated villain and the fated hero, look at each other in the distance for the first time. Deep in a remote mountain range, the young adventurer Alba picks up a rare weed, declaring his collecting mission complete. Having lived isolated in those mountains for 3 long years, the treacherous landscape is like a backyard to him, allowing him to descend steep cliffs with surprising agility. This area, the Neeb Forest, is restricted by the Adventurers Guild, but for Alba it is only the fastest way. He returns to the Adventurers Guild in the city, handing the herbs to a stunned receptionist. He can hardly believe he's back already. The 1-star mission required a 6-hour round trip, but he completed it in just 3. Pressed for an explanation, Alba simply states that he ran very fast, leaving the receptionist speechless. For his effort, he receives 10,000 curia. Contemplating the money, Alba realizes that, in order to earn more, she will need to move up the ranks quickly. His thoughts, however, soon drift to a particular person, and he wonders how Celia will be. Far away, in a grandiose cathedral, Celia herself, revered as the Blessed Sacrament, leads her followers in prayer, beg the goddess to guide their wandering souls back to the right path. The crowd is in ecstasy, crying out for his blessings and mercy, captivated by his presence. A priest observes with satisfaction the joy of the faithful, commenting that this is what is expected of the Blessed Sacrament. In a stark contrast to Alba's life, Celia ended up earning more than 10 times what he did in the same period of time. Meanwhile, Alba sits in a ramen shop in the capital, marveling at the existence of such food in the city. While eating, he reflects on his situation. The capital is also home to the family of Alba, the Duchy of Heresia. Having run away from home long ago, he considers them practically strangers, assuming that his brother has already inherited the house. He ruminates bitterly that the family never denied the rumors of his death, which for him means that they do not care at all. Unlike the mountains, the capital is full of people who might recognize him, like the woman he met the day before, Elena. He finishes his meal and, on leaving the restaurant, puts on his hood, determined to stay vigilant. He knows he can't let his guard down, because anything could set off a death flag. His caution is immediately put to the test when panic takes over the street. A runaway horse gallops through the crowd, which screams Yuya in terror. In the midst of the chaos, a blonde-haired young woman freezes in fear, directly in the path of the enraged animal. In the instant before the impact, a barrier of blue and crystalline ice emerges from the ground, stopping the horse at once. Alba, still with the hood on, appears next to the girl and asks if she is okay. The dust dissipates to reveal Alba standing on the now unconscious horse, while the girl and the spectators look at him in wonder. He jumps up and confirms that the young woman is not injured. She thanks him profusely, but on looking at him more closely, she remarks that she feels she has seen him before. Alba panics internally, fearing that she is a noblewoman who might recognize the Duke's second son. The crowd gathers, praising his heroic act, to his despair. I couldn't ignore the young woman's scream, but now she's attracting just the kind of attention I was afraid of. Suddenly, an imposing figure approaches, asking about the commotion. He is a man in full armor, accompanied by guards. The girl immediately recognizes him as Duke Roy Erisia. Alba's blood freezes, she is face to face with her own brother. Roy addresses the girl, calling the mind the Barony of Lupica, remembering to have seen her at his succession ceremony. Mina explains that the hooded man saved her, and the Duke's eyes turn to Alba. Roy, as responsible for public order and a friend of Mina's family, expresses his gratitude. Alba remains silent, desperate not to be recognized. His stillness is interpreted as rudeness, and he tries to apologize and quickly leave. As he walks away, Roy calls out to him, saying that his voice reminded him of his silly younger brother, Alba. The Duke demands to see the man's face, insisting that he is the one who decides whether it is worth it or not. The tension increases, but before Alba is forced to reveal herself, a new voice intervenes, calling Pearl. It is Elena Persia, the woman of his previous thoughts. She greets Duke Roy, and Alba's situation becomes even more precarious. Now he is caught between the tiger Elena and the wolf Roy, two people who know his true identity. Roy asks Elena if she knows the man, and she gently lies, claiming that Al is her friend and a squire in training, who was late for his appointment. Roy seems to accept the story, concluding that the man cannot be Alba. Elena adds a final touch, reminding Roy that she was Alba's fiancée and would never confuse him, adding that Alba is supposedly dead. The two exchange a meaningful glance. Roy apologizes to Ollie, comments that the dumb brother who disgraced the name said no longer exists. The confirmation that his family considers him dead hits Alba hard. After Roya offers to escort Lady Mina home, the group disperses, with Alba and Elena following them. Once alone, Alba thanks Elena for getting him out of that situation, relieved that his disguise was not discovered. However, when he tries to say goodbye, the tip of Helena's sword lands on his throat. She demands that he stop pretending, calling him by his real name, Alba. He warns him that, if he continues to play the fool, he will reveal his identity to the Duke. Defeated, Alba agrees to explain, regretting that she is already in trouble before even starting school. He curses the goddess of fate for never missing an opportunity to complicate his life, while images of Celia, Mina and Roy crowd in his mind. He is fleeing from a predestined death flag, surrounded by faces from the past and the present, that threaten to reveal his secret at any moment. At the entrance ceremony of the prestigious Kriana Academy, the director spoke with an infectious fervor, declaring that a bright light, guided by the goddess of fate herself, shone on the future of the new students. In the middle of the crowd of newbies, Alba and Celia were watching. Celia commented, with a giggle, that the director seemed quite energetic. Alba, on the other hand, felt a twinge of familiarity. He remembered that, in the game, that old man was a source of clues on how to move forward in the story. Although they had managed to enter the academy without problems, a feeling of apprehension was taking over Alba. With the sweat sliding down his hundred, he observed the faces around him, knowing the dark truth that was hidden behind the facade of the institution. That academy was the real starting point of the death flags that were stalking him. In her future, there were 5 routes, each centered on a different heroine, and all of them were, in some way, linked to her own ruin. He was already hopelessly involved in Celia and Elena's routes, and the idea of accumulating even more death flags terrified him. She mentally reviewed the remaining 3 heroines, the princess, a secret character who could only be found at the academy, which made her a potential problem, the protagonist's childhood friend, Alice, and the sap's disciple, Lily. They were all on the same course as him, demanding the utmost caution. However, there was someone else, someone outside of the 5 heroines, with whom he had to be extremely careful. His eyes swept through the crowd until they found him. There he was, the main protagonist of Kriana fantasy, Eurus. And the reason for all her fear was a cruel and inescapable truth of the world into which she had been reborn. The villain almost always dies at the hands of the protagonist. The 2 young men, villain and hero, were like 2 sides of the same coin, destined for an inevitable confrontation. Suddenly, as if feeling the weight of Alba's gaze, Eurus' head turned sharply towards him. Celia, next to him, noticed the attention, and began to call to him, but her voice faltered. Near Eurus, a girl with glasses and a ponytail, Alice, asked what was going on. Eurus replied that nothing, but her gaze remained fixed. Alba's heart froze. He had to stay away from Eurus at all costs. He could not in any way draw attention to himself. Already in the classroom of the unicorn class, the students were settling in. Alba, with her face resting on her hand, looked bored and exhausted, while Celia sat next to her. The murmur in the living room was undeniable, and everything revolved around Celia. The students wondered why the Blessed Virgin was at the academy, commenting on how adorable she was. Alba sighed internally. It was impossible to go unnoticed being always by his side. That desire of Celia to have a normal school life seemed more and more difficult to achieve. Noticing the stares, Celia got up and introduced herself to everyone with a radiant smile. She said that her name was Celia Margaret, a first-year student of the unicorn class, and that, like everyone there, she was also a student of the Kriana Academy. With a captivating gentleness, she asked to be treated not as the Blessed Sacrament, but as a classmate, and to be called simply Celia. In an instant, he conquered everyone's heart. The students gladly accepted, some even asking for permission to call her Celia-chan. Alba watched her, impressed. Celia was amazing. Maybe she had nothing to worry about. His tranquility was short-lived. One of the students asked Celia who the boy next to her was. The atmosphere changed. Others began to murmur, saying that they felt as if they had already seen him somewhere, that they had bad memories associated with him. The figures of his companions became gloomy, their faces darkened by suspicion. Panic seized Alba. There were many nobles in the academy. Although her hair color and personality were completely different now, she realized that they were very likely to find out who she really was. Before the panic could take hold, Celia intervened with a smile. He introduced him as his friend and apprentice of the Holy Knight. Al, with a gentle touch on his arm, asked the companions to try to get along with him, explaining that he could be a little shy. Alba thought it was impossible to force people to accept a suspicious guy who had appeared out of nowhere, but to her surprise, the entire class greeted Al with infectious enthusiasm. The power of the Blessed Virgin, he thought, was truly terrifying. In the midst of the warm reception, a new voice joined the choir. A girl with long brown hair tied in a ponytail, Elena, also greeted him. He asked her if she was also in the unicorn class, and Alba confirmed that they were classmates. The others immediately recognized her as Elena Persia-sam, praising her beauty and her fencing, which they said put the very order of royal knights to shame. Celia, curious, asked Alba if they hadn't seen her the other day. Alba's mind went into high alert. Elena knew that he was Alba, Noel. After all, she was his ex-fiancée. The word resonated in his mind, and he somehow escaped into the living room, leaving Celia and the others in shock. The vision of Elena transported him back to 3 years ago, to a conversation on a balcony under a cloudy sky. He could hardly believe that he was meeting his old fiancée again. Back then, Elena had confronted him, asking him if the reason for his sudden disappearance was because he had grown tired of his family and had run away. Alba could not answer. He had completely abandoned his previous life, reborn as a new person. How could he explain that he had reincarnated, or that he was fleeing from a fate of certain death? Elena continued, mentioning the rumors that circulated, that she had disappeared, died, or even murdered by her own family. Alba laughed humorlessly, commenting on how much people liked to talk. Elena then confessed that her family was happy when the ties were broken, because they considered him a criminal. She admitted that she hated him too, that he was a rude, dirty, womanizing scoundrel, and that she had thought about killing him several times herself. However, his expression softened. He confessed that, when he thought about the possibility that he was really dead, he would start crying. That confession sparked a memory from his childhood. She recalled a day when she cried because her father had criticized her fencing style and personality for being too masculine, telling her that she should behave more like a woman. In that memory, the silhouette of a young Alba appeared, and told him that it didn't matter if he was like a man or a woman. He told her that she was Elena, and that alone was enough. The young Elena, her face bathed in tears, looked at him and whispered his name. Returning to the conversation from 3 years ago, Elena blushed slightly and admitted that, at that time, she certainly did not hate him. Alba was shocked. That was a part of the scenario that didn't exist in the game, a suggestion that maybe Alba wasn't originally a bad person. Elena watched him, and said that it seemed that he had really been reborn. He mentioned having heard how he risked himself to stop a runaway horse, and become the bodyguard of the Blessed Virgin he had saved. He commented that it was almost as if he had returned to how he was before. Confused, Alba didn't know what to answer. Elena changed the subject, asking about his plans at the academy, and warning him that many children of nobles hated him there. He knew this and expressed his hope that his identity would not be exposed. To his surprise, Helena promised to help him keep his secret. Exultantly, he thanked her, but she quickly added that she was opening a price. In exchange for her help, she would have to take care of the endless line of suitors who have been harassing her since her engagement was annulled. Alba's joy turned into pure horror. Back to the present, in the classroom, Alba reminded Elena not to forget her promise. Celia, completely lost, demanded to know what promise that was, and what story of an ex-fiancé they had. Approaching Elena in search of answers. With the situation calming down, Celia asked Elena to call her simply Celia, as they were partners. Elena accepted, and asked the same in return. Both were formally introduced, and the other students sighed, marveling at the beauty of the two. As Elia kept pressing Alba and Elena about their secret, an arrogant voice interrupted them. A portly student, with two-tone gummed hair, teased Al, telling him not to get excited just to be with a flower in each hand. Referring to the Blessed Sacrament and Elena, Alba asked who he was, which seemed to offend the boy even more, who called him a redneck for not knowing him. Elena coldly identified him as Balvi, the eldest son of Count Valgad. Alba understood immediately. That was one of the suitors she would have to deal with. Without wasting any time, Balvi turned to Elena, praising her beauty, and proposing that they form a union. He argued that even if their house was only owned by an earl, they were still high-ranking nobles, and would make an excellent match for House Persia. He called her a beautiful flower in full bloom, of a stock with royal blood, and declared that it would be an honor for any noble to take her hand in marriage. While Balb continued his speech about the benefits for both families, Alba intervened. He declared that Balvin was not suitable for Elena in any way. With a fierce conviction, Alba said that Balvin did not understand the value of the person named Elena. He repeated the same words that he had told her in childhood, "You are, Elena, and that alone is enough." The room fell silent. Celia looked at Alba, impressed, while Balv watched him, shocked and furious. Elena, for her part, was visibly moved, her face flushed as she whispered the name Alba. Enraged, Balbi shouted that it was unforgivable, that Alba had dared to sully the honor of the Valgad house. With a sharp movement, he threw a glove to the ground in front of Alba. Was it a challenge, a handkerchief? Alba didn't understand the gesture, but the whole class did. Cries of surprise echoed in the classroom. It was a duel. Completely taken by surprise, the only thing Alba could think of was, why? All the attention of the academy was focused on a single point. In the middle of a courtyard, surrounded by a crowd of students, a young man with blonde and unruly hair seemed completely lost. Screams echoed everywhere, announcing that the time for mourning had come. Next to him, a girl with ornaments in her hair in the form of wings encouraged him to do his best, while another, in a ponytail, watched him with a skeptical expression. The boy, however, did not seem to understand what was happening, receiving the intense stares of the entire student body. At Clear Academy, dueling is a serious matter, governed by strict rules to maintain order. They can only be proposed to defend one's honor, and, in order for them to be recognized, the opponent must accept the challenge. Sealed with a handshake. In addition, fights are only allowed in the designated dueling arena, and must be supervised by a witness. In the center of the arena, a black cat dressed in a top hat and cane acted as the master of ceremonies. She introduced herself as Katz, the witness to the confrontation. With a theatrical gesture, he announced the start of the duel between Aru and Barubi, while the crowd roared the names of the competitors. And Lena, the girl in the ponytail, warned Aru that running away from a duel was an act worse than death, and something he should be ashamed of. The girl with the wings in her hair, on the other hand, exclaimed that Aru had already accepted the challenge. Aru, for his part, turned to the side, admitting to himself that he didn't even know it was a duel. On the other side of the arena, Kat informed herself that, in order for the duel to be official, both fighters had to declare what they were betting on. Aru's opponent, a sturdy boy named Barubi, recalled that, in the original game, the dueling system was just a side event, unrelated to the main story, or Alba's flag of destruction. Then he declared his condition. If he won, he would forbid Aru to even speak to Ilina, stating that he would make that saint his wife. Faced with the provocation, Aru, with a cold and determined look, accepted the challenge. He set his own bet: if he won, Barubi should stay away from the girls. Barubi smiled scornfully, sure of his victory. With the agreed terms, Kat declared the beginning of the duel. The crowd watched expectantly. Aru's friend asked Ilina how strong Barubi was. Ilina explained that he was a fire mage, probably the strongest of the first year. At that very moment, Barubi proved it. Invoking the red purgatory, he manifested an aura of intense flames, declaring that he would interfere with the logic of the world, and turn everything to ashes with his fire. Aru barely had time to wonder what that enchantment was, when Kat identified the magic to herself as a high-level fire attribute spell. Barubi then unleashed his most powerful attack, the L Flame, a massive torrent of fire that advanced directly towards Aru. The explosion was deafening, engulfing the arena in flames and smoke. Aru's friends, and the rest of the crowd, shouted his name in panic, staring at the scene in horror. In the midst of the destruction, Barubi was laughing hysterically, convinced that he had reduced his opponent to ashes. He scoffed, saying that killing someone in a duel was not a crime, and that cats should not worry about one less student. It was then that a calm voice echoed behind his back, commenting that those flames were impressive. From the shadows, Aru emerged completely unharmed. Barubi turned around, incredulous, stuttering at the sight of him standing behind him, wondering how he had gotten there. The crowd was shocked by the instant movement. Only Elena seemed to recognize that speed. His mind traveled to an earlier time. When he had attacked Aru with his sword, he had dodged his blow in the blink of an eye, with such absurd speed, that it seemed that he not only moved, but transformed his own body into a phenomenon like lightning. Watching from afar, a girl with glasses explained the nature of what had just happened. He said that magic adds a phenomenon to the world, but what Aru did was different. He became the phenomenon himself. She wondered how many of those present understood how dangerous and complex that was, and Lena recognized her as a disciple of the sage. The girl, introduced as Riri, one of the heroes of the story, firmly declared that she would not lose. Back in the arena, Barubi, furious and humiliated, shouted the name of his attack, Red Purgatory, and ran towards Aru. The latter, however, remained calm, affirming that this enchantment was nothing more than a bluff. Barubi ignored him and released another burst of flames. Aru, with a fluid movement, dodged the attack, and, in the next instant, advanced. With a single open-handed blow, he not only intercepted the torrent of fire, but created a shockwave so powerful that it threw Barubi out of the arena. Barubi's body fell with a thud to the ground. Aru looked at his hand, thinking that maybe he had exaggerated a little. Katsei, recovering from the surprise, announced that Barubi was out of the ring, and that the victor was Aru. The crowd erupted in cheers, shouting Aru's name as he waved. A team of nurse cats appeared to attend to Barubi, who was unconscious. In the crowd, 2 students were watching with great interest. The girl, Alice, commented that it was a good decision to come and witness the duel. The boy next to him, Eurus, the protagonist of Clear Fantasy, nodded. Alice was impressed that Aru had defeated her opponent with a single blow, but Eurus corrected her. He explained that Aru didn't even get to hit him. He simply stood in front of Barubi and extended his arm. His speed was so extreme, like lightning, that simple movement generated a devastating shock wave that threw Barubi into the air. Alice was amazed, admitting that the only thing she had seen was Aru moving along with a flash of light, and that probably the other students didn't understand even that. Eurus, however, had seen it all. Alice asked him if he could beat Aru, and after a moment of reflection, Eurus admitted that, if they fought, he would lose. Still, he claimed that there was no need to fight him. Alice reminded him that if Aru threatened something important to him, the situation would be different. With a resolute look, Eurus declared that, in that case, he would not lose. Meanwhile, Aru was meeting up with her friends. Syria, the girl with the wings, was marveling at his strength, while Silena asked him how he had become so powerful. Aru's mind traveled to the past, to the time when he lived and trained in the mountains. He remembered a crucial fact: in this world, only he knew Alba's true talent. Memories of a long-haired man, the original villain of the game, came to mind. Alba was destined to be the final boss, an incredibly strong character who, if he trained and leveled up, became unbeatable. Even for the protagonist. The conclusion was clear: Alba was strong. Back to the present, Elena asked if that Alba they were talking about was really the pathetic person everyone said, the worst kind of trash. Aru, with a serious expression, replied that she was actually the best of people. Then, smiling, he told Syria that maybe he had exaggerated, but that it was natural that anyone who messed with Elena would fly out. And Elena, for her part, told Aru that she would heal him with her Santa powers if he got hurt. She thanked him for fighting for her. Aru reminded him of his promise. He had promised to help her. At his words, Elena blushed and shyly accepted. As Aru walked away with Elena and Syria, Kat watched them, thinking that, although the duel had no relation to the flag of destruction, Aru's thought was naive. Because fate was already constantly moving, and, unbeknownst to him, it was enveloping the real protagonists of the story, Juris, Alice and Riri. Al woke up in his bed. Outside, the city where he lives seemed quiet, but inside his room, Celia jumped on him, animatedly shouting that breakfast was ready. Half suffocating under his weight, Al muttered a good morning, to which Celia replied that he just didn't wake up. Sitting at the table, they enjoyed a hearty meal. The peaceful life was in contrast to the past, as Celia had become a much better cook since Al rescued her in the mountains. He promised that he would prepare dinner, and she asked him for a meat stew with potatoes. As they were getting ready to leave, Celia, brushing her teeth, handed Al his lunchbox. He thanked her, although a gloomy thought floated in his mind. He wondered if it was really good that his days were so quiet. Because that peace could be a prelude to a flag of destruction. On the way to school, he admired the lunchbox with a thoughtful expression. Celia, dressed in her school uniform, noticed his hesitation and asked him what was wrong. He dissembled, saying that it was nothing, and that they should hurry so as not to be late. As they made their way through the bustling streets of the city, Celia cheerfully commented on how much fun the academy classes were. But Al, scratching the back of his neck, admitted that they were quite difficult for him. Upon arriving at the imposing gates of the Orts Academy, they were greeted by other students. A young woman with long dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, and Lena, greeted him formally. Once inside the classroom, Al reflected on his situation. Since the initial duel, he had managed to avoid any event that could lead him to ruin, living a peaceful and uneventful school life together with the two heroines. However, his reputation did not proceed. Celia warned him not to ignore her advice, reminding him that he should listen to her carefully. In the hallways, the other students kept their distance, clearly intimidated by him. Al knew he had overdone his grief, and the others now had it. He sighed, thinking that, on the one hand, it was good that no one was approaching, as it helped him dodge the flags of destruction. But, on the other, he was a bit lonely. The school bell rang, announcing lunchtime. In the dining room, Elena invited Celia to have lunch with her and her group of friends, but she noticed Al's absence. Celia explained that he probably would have already eaten alone before recess, as usual. She remembered fondly when Al complimented her food, thinking about how he seemed to have changed lately. Meanwhile, Al was resting alone under a tree, feeling a little guilty about Celia. I knew that the lunch event was crucial to conquer the heroines in their game, increasing their level of affection. To avoid his own ruin, he had to stay away from such events. Suddenly, a shy voice called him. A girl was standing in front of him, asking if she could have lunch with him. Al was left in shock, a bead of sweat sliding down his face. The girl formally introduced herself, thanking him for the previous help. Al recognized her as the young woman he had saved. Her name was Mina, and, to her surprise, she was also a first-year student at the same academy. She wanted to express her gratitude, and, with a slight blush on her cheeks, offered him a lunchbox that she had prepared. Al panicked, recognizing the situation as a lunch event, a trigger of a romantic route. He looked at the girl. What was he waiting for? Her answer expectantly, and a thought struck him. Who was this character? He mentally reviewed the heroines of the game, and realized that Mina was not one of them. She was just a secondary character, a figurehead. Relieved, he concluded that, if she wasn't a heroine, there was no danger. He accepted the lunchbox with a smile, saying that he would eat it without hesitation. They both sat down to eat together. Al praised the food, saying it was delicious, which made Mina very happy. He asked her to stop using honorifics, as they were classmates, and suggested that they be friends. Mina was surprised, asking why would he do that, since being seen with someone like him would only attract disapproving looks and no advantage. Al replied that he didn't mind in the least. Mina, her eyes shining with determination, declared that she had already decided what she would do, and that she did not care about the opinion of others. Al was impressed by her willpower, and Mina, laughing, asked if there was any merit in being her friend. He promised to help her with all his might. The pleasant scene was interrupted by a shadow that was cast over them. It was Celia, with her hands on her waist, and a gloomy aura. He commented in a threatening voice that he looked like he was having fun, but not with her. His eyes narrowed into a slit, and he asked what was going on. Al, frightened, tried to explain that it was a misunderstanding. Intimidated, Mina repeatedly bowed in apology, and withdrew, saying she would return to the classroom. After Mina's departure, Celia turned to Al, and he explained that Mina was the classmate he helped in the city center when she was saved from a runaway horse. Elena, who was approaching, confirmed the story, saying that she also knew Baron Rubiker. Celia then realized that Mina would also participate in the next event. The mention of the event froze Al. He knew another test was about to start. In his mind, Al visualized the Clarana fantasy game screen. The first big event of the game was the extracurricular study, where the academy director encouraged the students to deepen their bonds. The event took place in the Nerub forest, where players fought monsters as part of a tutorial. Although only weak monsters were supposed to appear, making this a supposedly safe event, Al knew that fate was sealed there. Depending on the choices, the player deepened his relationship with one of the heroines, which led him straight to destruction. The students, now dressed in workout clothes, gathered at the entrance of Nerub forest. Celia expressed a little fear of fighting monsters, but Al reassured her, saying that they would be just weak creatures. Elena assured Celia that he would be there to protect her, and a portly professor instructed everyone to follow him. However, Al knew that the professor would not be in a position to help in what was to come. Within the game, there were 4 possible choices in that event: rescue Celia, fight alongside Elena, help her childhood friend Alice, or a 4th option that she couldn't remember. I knew that the real protagonist of the game, Julius, would show up and make one of those choices. The question for Al was what choice he had to make himself in order to survive. As the students entered the forest, the teacher instructed them to stay calm and not to rush, because they were about to enter the habitat of the monsters. Suddenly, he stopped, perceiving a strange and sinister presence. From the depths of the forest, a horde of terrifying and powerful monsters emerged in a frenzy. The professor screamed in panic, understanding that it was a big escape of monsters. Chaos erupted. The students were screaming as the beasts advanced. Elena drew her sword, ordering everyone to keep calm, while Mina felt that the aura of the monsters was abnormal. The teacher shouted for everyone to back off. In the midst of the confusion, Alice noticed that Julius had disappeared. But Al remained firm, with clenched fists and a determined look. The event I had been dreading so much had finally begun. The horde is advancing, a nightmare of fangs and claws. A colossal gorilla leads the onslaught, flanked by winged demons and crawling beasts, all converging on a group of terrified youths. In the midst of the chaos, a man with a peculiar mustache, who looks like an instructor, screams in panic for everyone to run out of the forest, warning that the teacher is about to become an obstacle. The battle, the first great event, has begun. It's the demonic stampede. At the center of it all, A rambunctious blonde-haired young man named Alba remains serene, his gaze fixed on the impending danger. He knows exactly what's going on. This is the first event of the game, and he understands that every action he takes here will alter his affinity with the heroines, changing the course of his destiny. All around him, panic sets in. One of his classmates tells a light-haired, cat-eared girl, Celia, that they should run away. She responds with a shaky sigh. Other girls, one with glasses and pigtails named Alice, and another with a hood, watch the scene with apprehension. Alba, however, faces the horde with a confident smile. He knows that the closer he gets to the heroines, the closer he will be to his own end of activating the flag of destruction. He wants to avoid that fate at all costs. Therefore, his choice is clear. He must follow the original script of the villain Alba. In a vivid memory, as if he saw the game screen, he remembers the words of the character he now inhabits, who declared that he could not be bothered to deal with it. And so, Alba decides to abandon everyone and flee from that place. He turns and runs, leading his companions away from the main combat, deeper into the forest. As they run through the thicket, the escape is abruptly interrupted. A monstrous beast, a cross between a bear and a lion, emerges from among the trees and attacks the group. Celia, taken by surprise, screams in terror. Another student is thrown by the impact. The creature pounces on the beast girl, who, paralyzed by fear, only manages to cry out for help. He calls out Alba's name. In the next instant, a flash of energy and lightning tears the air. Alba emerges like lightning, intercepting the beast's attack with a devastating blow that throws her away. The group meets briefly. Celia thanks Alba, who orders her to get out of the forest quickly. However, one of his companions lies injured on the ground. Selly tries to heal him with her power, the blessing of the goddess, but her energy is too weak. He realizes that, with limited abilities, he cannot save everyone. With regret, he decides that he must stay behind. Looking at Alba, he implores her to save him all, assuring that she believes in his power. Alba clenches her fist, a gesture of conflict on her face. He knows that the logical decision would be another, that this has nothing to do with avoiding flags of destruction. But he also understands that saving only his own skin would be a pathetic act. A confident smile appears on his face. He tells Celia to leave everything in his hands and concentrate on taking care of others. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, a young woman with reddish hair and ponytail, Lena, bravely fights against a giant mantis, dodging its attacks with agility. He delivers a powerful blow, creating an energy barrier, and shouting at the others to flee. She thanks Ilena and prepares to face another imposing monster. Alba approaches him, asking if he is okay. She assures that she does, and he reassures her, saying that he knows her abilities well, but warns her not to be reckless. Lena thanks and tells Alba to take care of the inside of the forest, while she holds the front line. Alba advances, making her way through the thicket with bursts of energy. He knows that the event will only end when the boss of the Neeb forest is defeated. However, something unsettles him. This should be a beginner's battle, populated only by weak monsters. Instead, the forest is full of powerful creatures that should only appear halfway through the game. He wonders if the scenario is deviating from the original because his actions are different. His suspicion is confirmed when a colossal creature emerges from the trees, a three-headed chimera, with the body of a lion, the head of a goat on its back, and a snake for a tail. The boss has also changed. Alba grinds her teeth. He remembers fighting the chimera in the game, and knows how difficult it is. It's an enemy that shouldn't be in the tutorial. Suddenly, a voice is calling him. It's Alice, the girl with glasses, who greets him, and tells him that he can't be asking for help in a situation like that. It turns out that she, one of the heroines and childhood friend of the protagonist, got lost and was captured by the chimera snake. He insists that he must save her. With no other choice, Alba screams to wait, promising to rescue her immediately. He launches into the attack, but his energy punch dissipates harmlessly against the creature. The chimera's goat head strikes back with an energy breath that throws him backwards. Lena, from afar, shouts the crucial information. The weakness of the chimera changes, alternate between being vulnerable to physical attacks and magical attacks. Alice realizes that, since Alba is using lightning magic, the chimera must be in the mode in which magic is ineffective, which explains why she had so much difficulty in the game. Alba remembers that, in the game, the Chimera was a monster that could not be defeated alone, it required cooperation. With Elena attacking with her sword, and Celia with magic. Come up with a plan. Use the magic to quickly approach, dissipate it, and then deliver a physical attack. He executes the maneuver and connects a punch in the face of Leon, but the beast scoffs, saying that an ordinary blow will not take effect. Alba understands her mistake. Fighting with empty hands is impossible, because she did not prepare a weapon. As she hesitates, the snake tail of the Chimera tightens its grip on Alice. She screams in pain, the sound rumbling in the forest. The snake contracts with brutal force, and with a horrible crack, Alice's body is rendered inert, blood splashing in the air. Alba watches, horrified and helpless. Suddenly, a figure bursts into the clearing. A dark-haired young man, brandishing a sword, solemnly advances, and picks up Alice's lifeless body in his arms. Mutters his name, Eurus. In his arms, Alice weakly opens her eyes, blushing as she says she knew he would come to save her. Eurus, the protagonist, comforts her, telling her to rest. Then he turns to the Chimera, his expression turning into an icy fury. He asks if the creature is furious, declaring that he is too, and that he will not spare anyone who wants what is precious to him. Eurus advances, his sword shining, and delivers a devastating blow. Alba is impressed by the strength of the protagonist. However, the attack that would have been the creature's weak point before is now ineffective. Alice, observing, realizes that Jura's physical attack caused the weakness of the Chimera to change again. He is now vulnerable to magic. Seeing the opportunity, Alba concentrates her energy and shoots a massive beam that hits the Chimera full, making it roar in pain. As the smoke clears, Yuri turns to Alba, reluctantly saying that he owes her one. Alba, with her arms crossed, replies not to get any wrong ideas, it only helped to finish the event faster. From afar, Alice watches the two rivals, a smile forming on her face, as she thinks this is a good development. The unlikely alliance between the villain and the hero had just begun,